Take any Punjabi person and read two separate pieces of their DNA. One piece comes only from the mother. She got it from her mother, who got it from hers, in an unbroken female line that has never once passed through a man. The other piece comes only from the father in an unbroken male line that has never once passed through a woman. Both of those molecules are sitting in the same cell. They have been in the same body since the moment that body existed, and they come from opposite ends of human history. Not opposite ends of a country, not opposite ends of a region, opposite ends of the human story itself. The female line goes back to people who were already living in South Asia before there was a city anywhere on Earth, before farming, before the wheel, before writing, before anyone had domesticated a single animal. Those women were in South Asia when the whole of the rest of human history was still in front of them. The male line does not go back to them. A very large share of it traces somewhere else entirely, to a grassland far to the northwest, outside South Asia altogether. And it arrives so late that the pyramids at Giza were already old, weathered, tourist-worn monuments by the time it got anywhere near a Punjabi river. Same person, same cell. Two ancestries separated by a gap so wide that the people at one end of it could not have imagined the world the people at the other end were living in. That is not a figure of speech. It is a measurement, and it has been made repeatedly by people who are not trying to prove anything about Punjab. Start with the mothers, because they are the older story and by far the quieter one. Mitochondrial DNA is the piece that only mothers pass on. It sits outside the cell's nucleus in its own small loop, and it does not shuffle with the father's copy the way the rest of the genome does. That makes it a clean record. A single female line running backwards without interruption for as long as you have the patience to follow it. And when researchers followed the maternal lines of South Asia backwards, they kept arriving in the same place. Not Central Asia, not the Middle East, South Asia itself. A large study of Indian mitochondrial genomes put it in numbers. Somewhere between 70 and 90% of the maternal lineages of South Asia are indigenous to South Asia. They did not arrive from anywhere. They were already there. The deepest of those maternal branches date back to the first modern humans to reach the subcontinent at all, the coastal migration out of Africa. The dating on those branches runs to roughly 55 to 65,000 years before the present, which means the female line inside a living Punjabi person has in all likelihood been in South Asia continuously since before there were people in most of Europe. It sat through the last ice age there. It sat through the invention of agriculture there. It sat through the rise and the fall of the Indus cities. Empires formed above it and collapsed above it, and the molecule did not change hands. In the last 4,000 years, the maternal influx into South Asia from outside is tiny. Across the subcontinent, it is on the order of 2%. Even in the west of the region closest to every route in, it only rises to about 5%. Whatever happened to Punjab over the last 4,000 years, it did not happen to the women's line. Now read the father's line, and the picture inverts so completely that for years people assumed one of the two datasets had to be wrong. The Y chromosome passes only from father to son. Same principle, opposite sex, and it should tell a broadly similar story about where a population has been. It does not. Across the subcontinent, the share of male lineages that trace to a West Eurasian origin runs somewhere between 50 and 90%, depending on the population you sample, against 70 to 90% indigenous on the mother's side. The same population, the same people. Two lines that disagree about where they are from. One paternal lineage carries most of that weight. It is called R1A, and in the northwest of the subcontinent, it is not a minority marker, it is the majority one. Across Indian data overall, it accounts for roughly 17.5% of male lineages, but it is not spread evenly. It ranges from almost nothing in the east of the subcontinent to close to 50% among northwestern Indo-European speaking groups. Punjab sits at the top of that gradient. Whatever brought R1A into South Asia, Punjab is where it landed hardest. And the timing is the part that does not fit. The maternal lineages are deep, tens of thousands of years deep. The paternal ones are shallow. Most of the male line story in South Asia belongs to the last 10,000 years. Mothers from the Pleistocene, fathers from the Bronze Age. That is the split. And once you can see it, the obvious question is, what could possibly do that to a population? To answer it, the field needed something it had never had, the actual DNA of the people who lived in this exact place before any of it happened. There is a village in Haryana called Rakhigarhi. Underneath it is one of the largest cities of the Indus Valley civilization. The Indus cities are the ones that make Punjab's prehistory internationally famous. Grid streets, standardized brick, covered drains running under the roads. They are also genetically one of the hardest places on Earth to work. Ancient DNA survives best in cold, dry, stable ground. Northern India is hot, seasonally soaked and biologically busy. DNA there does not last, it is taken apart. So the team took skeletal samples from 61 separate individuals from the site and tried to pull a genome out of each of them. 60 of them failed. One did not. A single individual catalogued as I6113 yielded enough authentic ancient DNA to read. She was a woman. She was buried in the mature phase of the Indus civilization, somewhere in the region of 4,500 to 5,000 years ago. One woman. Out of 61 attempts at one of the most important archaeological sites in South Asia, the entire genetic record of the Indus Valley civilization came down to her. And what she had in her genome mattered enormously because Punjab had been arguing about it for over a century. But what mattered more was what she did not have. Her ancestry resolved into two components, and only two. About 73% of it came from a lineage related to ancient Iranians. The remaining 27% came from an ancient South Asian hunter-gatherer population, the deep indigenous layer related to the people of the Andaman Islands. Now, hold that first number still, because it is doing something strange. The Iranian-related component in her genome does not come from Iranian farmers. It comes from a lineage that had already split away before the ancestors of Iran's farmers and herders separated from one another. It branched off before farming existed, which means agriculture did not walk into South Asia inside a crowd of migrating farmers. The people already living there took it up. The researchers were explicit about it. There is no meaningful Anatolian farmer ancestry in these individuals at all. And then the second absence, which is the one that turned this into a public argument. She has no steppe ancestry. None. The Indus Valley civilization, the civilization built on the rivers of Punjab, the one every school child in the region is taught as the foundation of their history, carried, at least in the one genome we can read, none of the Central Asian ancestry that is now the most argued about component in Northwest South Asian DNA. It was not there yet, which means it arrived afterwards. A caution worth stating plainly, because the video would be dishonest without it. This is one genome from one site, from one woman. The wider study, it sits inside samples more individuals from the Indus periphery, and they agree with her. But one skeleton is one skeleton, and every researcher involved said so at the time. The larger study, published alongside her sequenced 523 ancient people from across South and Central Asia, it gave the arrival a date and a narrow one. Steppe ancestry enters South Asia in the first half of the second millennium before the Common Era, not gradually across the ages inside a window a few centuries wide. Before roughly 2000 BCE, the Indus periphery populations have no detectable steppe ancestry whatsoever. After that window, it is present and it does not leave. It ends up contributing as much as 30% of the ancestry of some modern South Asian groups. And the profile of that steppe ancestry is not vague or generic. It matches closely the steppe ancestry found in Bronze Age Eastern Europe. The same movement of people that reshaped Europe reached Punjab. Different direction, same source, roughly the same era. That is also the strongest genetic evidence for how the Indo-European languages, including Punjabi itself, got where they are. A person speaking Punjabi today is speaking a language whose deep grammatical relatives include Greek, Latin, German and Russian, and the genome says why. So, the language arrived. A large block of ancestry arrived. The archaeology of the region changes. And yet the mothers of Punjab, as we have already seen, barely register any of it. Something arrived. It was not in the main arriving with women. The science paper states it in a single sentence, and it is worth hearing exactly as written. Most of the steppe ancestry in South Asia derives from males, pointing to asymmetric social interaction between descendants of steppe pastoralists and the peoples of the Indus periphery. Asymmetric social interaction. That is the scientific phrasing, and it is deliberately restrained. What it describes mechanically is a population in which incoming men left a great many descendants and incoming women left very few, while local women left a great many and local men left proportionally fewer. That is why the two molecules disagree. They are not recording the same event. They are recording the same event from two different sides of it. The mitochondria kept the record of who was already there. The Y chromosome kept the record of who arrived. And in Punjab, sitting at the top of the R1A gradient, that asymmetry is written more strongly than almost anywhere else in South Asia. A Punjabi person is, in a very literal genetic sense, the descendant of two populations that did not meet as equals. And this is the point in the story where it becomes important to say what the genome cannot do. A genome records who had children and roughly when. That is the entire content of the signal. It does not record how that happened. It cannot distinguish conquest from marriage or marriage from slow migration or migration from a social system that simply gave one group's sons more opportunity than another's over many generations. All of those leave the same signature. Every one of them produces a male-biased ancestry pattern, and the DNA cannot tell you which you are looking at. Anyone who tells you the genetics proves a violent invasion is going beyond the data. Anyone who tells you it proves nothing happened is going beyond the data in the opposite direction. What the data actually supports is narrower and more stubborn than either. A large ancestry component entered northwest South Asia within a few centuries. It came overwhelmingly through men. It is still there. There is a second thing worth being honest about, and it cuts against tidy storytelling. The category Punjabi is not one genetic thing. It never was. A study of over 300 Y chromosome haplotypes from Jat men across India and Pakistan found the paternal ancestry did not resolve to a single origin at all. It resolved into multiple distinct ancestral lines from several different regions. One community inside one region carrying several unrelated deep male lineages that arrived at different times from different places. So the clean picture, one indigenous mother line, one incoming father line is the average, not the reality. The reality underneath the average is messier, and it is messier in a way that matters, which brings this to the most recent chapter, published only last year, and to the strangest thing in it. A team sequenced 2,762 complete genomes from across India, regions, languages and communities that genomics had largely ignored until then. It confirmed the three-source picture. Deep indigenous South Asian hunter-gatherers, Iranian-related Neolithic ancestry, steppe pastoralists. It traced the bulk of Indian genetic variation to a single migration out of Africa somewhere around 50,000 years ago. But that was not the finding that made the study remarkable. When modern humans left Africa, they met other kinds of human already living across Eurasia. Neanderthals, Denisovans. They interbred with them, and small fragments of those extinct people survive scattered in living genomes today. Each living person carries only a sliver, but different people carry different slivers. So the team did something that sounds almost like archaeology done on living blood. They collected the archaic fragments out of thousands of Indian genomes and stitched them back together. Out of living Indian people, they reassembled roughly 1.5 billion base pairs of Neanderthal DNA. That is about half of the entire Neanderthal genome. Recovered not from a bone in a European cave, but from the DNA of people who are alive right now. They recovered several 100 million base pairs of Denisovans sequenced the same way. And the reason it worked in India specifically is the part that reframes everything before it. More than 90% of the Neanderthal fragments known anywhere in the world today are present in India, and over 1/10 of the fragments found there are found nowhere else on Earth. The subcontinent has been continuously inhabited for so long by so many populations that stayed put and married within themselves for so many generations that it has functioned as a storage vault for pieces of humanity that vanished everywhere else. Which returns this, finally, to the two molecules we started with. The father's line in a Punjabi genome is young. It arrived in the Bronze Age mostly through men, and it brought the language now spoken across the region. The mother's line is old. It was in South Asia before agriculture, before the Indus cities, before almost anything that would be called history. And threaded through both of them, in fragments too small to see and too scattered to belong to any lineage at all, is a third thing that is not Punjabi, not Indian, and not even the same species. The oldest inheritance in Punjabi blood does not come from the Steppe or from the Indus, or from the first people to walk into South Asia. It comes from someone who was already here when all of them were still in Africa and who did not survive to be anyone's ancestor except in this one accidental fragmentary way. Two lines that arrived 50,000 years apart. And underneath them both, a third that was never supposed to be there at all. That is the code written in Punjabi blood.